welcome to my channel. My name is Chris Thomas. We'd like to offer another update on goings on. There's a lot going on in the world today. Of course, the media won't tell you anything. The TV or the accepted media will not reveal the truth about what's going on. But we know that incredible things are happening right now. Now, so even though there's a lot going on, if you're aware of all these things, watching various YouTube videos and people who have first-hand experiences and are uploading them to Facebook or some social networking site, and you're seeing this, it's very easy to get drawn into a drama about what's going on. Now, I've said that the pole shift date is February 4th, 2023. I said so in 2016. Now, but I want to talk about scale first of all. If you understand that the scale is global, and in fact, it's actually, if you really want to look at it technically, it's actually, the scale is intergalactic, but it's also solar system wide. But primarily we're focused on Earth, so the scale is global. So when you hear of snow falling in tropical areas and all the various things I'm going to cover, you have to realize that that these situations that are occurring are spread out all around the globe. So that's the scale. The scale is the globe. So it's not indicative. It's only indicative of the approach of Planet X for passage. That's all it is, and it's not to do, not to get all dramatic about it, because, well, I've given people the date February 4th, 2023. Some people want to challenge that. That's fine. I don't care. But I've often said that the actual pole shift itself will be announced itself as the Earth changes going into the last 6 months of the before the pole shift are going to be dramatic. So let's no. Also wanted to talk a bit about two things. One thing is waking dreams. So waking dreams are events, sounds, anything that comes to your ears or eyes during the day that are actually giving you answers and a heads up to what you need to know, what you're wondering about at the moment. Now, of course, you know, our days of experience are full of little details, or, you know, common details. But the way it works is that we have, consider this concept, you have a fabric of the day. You know, you get up, you know, you make breakfast, have your coffee, your breakfast, you know, get in the car or whatever, you go to work, or maybe you go out in the garden and garden or whatever, or you know, you get the kids to school, whatever it is. So you get to work, and, you know, there's all these things. That's the fabric of your day. Now, the waking dreams stick out of the fabric, so that they give you a hint as to what you need to know. Sometimes it's very direct. Now, they're called waking dreams for a reason, because people write to me and say, I had a waking dream last night when I was sleeping. I said, you know, this is not a waking dream. This is a sleep dream. Or I had a man write to me years ago about having a vision of a sinking Western Australia, and he was surrounded by beautiful blue-green water, and he started to choke while he was just sitting in his workshop in Western Australia. And he had this vision. So that's an overlay. What I would call, it's actually what we call a soul travel experience. That's an overlay directly onto your daily life. So I'm not talking about visions, although visions are fantastic. Waking dreams are events and sounds that come to you while you're awake. That's why we call them waking dreams. Sleep dreams are great too, but waking dreams occur while you're awake. The advantage of interpreting waking dreams is that you have your critical faculties awake, functioning. So you can interpret the dream on the fly, rather than if a waking dream, if it's we have a dream, wake up, okay, if you have your coffee, then try to think about it, it's already faded from your memory, and beginning to fade. So you have to work real hard at interpreting a sleep dream, and you have to do that immediately upon waking. And of course, it has so waking sleep dreams can be wonderful, but I'm talking about an event that can happen to you while you're awake. It could be a bird call. It could be I've had many. Have you ever been walking on the street somewhere and you're wondering about something, you're thinking about something, and you're walking along, and you pass a group of people, and a word or two or a phrase will pop out of the conversation. That's all you hear. It's just that one word or a phrase, because you're moving, and the timing is such that you hear a certain phrase or a certain word. That can be is what is called the golden tongue wisdom of God. So rather colorful, dramatic way of saying it, but it's can be a waking dream. So if you're wondering about something, just be passively aware of what comes to you, what you see, and then that'll be see or hear, and it could be many different things. But you have to play with it and work with it. And the reason I bring up the waking dreams is because it's a direct line from your oversoul to you. So it is giving you heads up. Now, the huge advantage is that when you're looking for a safe location or considering something really important, whether you should buy this thing or not for the after time, or getting anything to do with your preparations for the pole shift, when you're using your mind, you're Googling and you're looking for advice, and you're using your head, your mind, your brain. And that has severe limitations to it. You can come up with some great ideas with your mind, but it's not anywhere near as reliable as a waking dream. But you have to learn to interpret them. So I wanted to point you towards the waking dream as a tool to use in directing you and getting ready for the pole shift and the various things that we have to do. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is imagination. Now, we all know by the positive thinking culture. I produced many books on positive thinking, and they talk about. I'm not going to get into specific books or anything like that, but I know that using your imagination to imagine yourself, for example, successful in something, that you've completed something, is a very common effort, expression within the positive thinking genre of books. But I want to extend that a little further, in that I've been doing some reading. I came across something that I wanted to briefly talk about and get this idea out. And so what it is recently I had to put in a bathroom fan in an old house. And so I use this method to do that. Now, there were quite a few challenges actually in doing this. And so this is the way I did it. So I would stand there looking at the ceiling, a bare ceiling, in a house that was built about 1960. No bathroom fan. Looking at the ceiling. Now, matters worse, it's also cove ceiling, so we're talking plaster with sand in it. So when you cut through it, you can destroy your tool. Anyway, so I'm standing there and I'm thinking, okay. So then I started to. I decided that I was going to commit myself to the imagination process. And so I looked up at the ceiling. And I said, okay, there it is. It's there. I'm seeing it. So what it is, you imagine something that you want to achieve, and you imagine it that it's completed. Now this in itself is not actually that uncommon, this type of thinking. But the interesting thing is that what I was reading is that once you imagine what you want, you have that solid in your imagination, then you work backwards from there. So I asked myself, okay, there it is. How did it get there? So I imagine the step just prior to its installation. And so I imagined that. I got these ideas. And so then I imagined the next thing is the step prior to that. And how did I do that? So which one of the steps was to run a switching power to the device. So there was all these things that had to be done. So, but I imagined it happening, that it was installed first, then I worked backwards from there. Each step, how did that happen? Okay, I've got that now, but before that, I had to do this. How did that happen? And before I did that, I had that imagination, and I said, well, how did that happen? So you work backwards, and that is what I wanted to say, in that if you imagine yourself in your safe location that you want, and someplace what you want, and make sure you frame it out so that it is actually a safe location for the pole shift, and then imagine that you're there. Now you're going to imagine, well, how did that happen? Well, I had to find it. Well, how did I find it? So you work with it backing up like that. So I just wanted to get that idea out. So let's move on to some current events. So I want you to take a look at this. This happened February. It was a glacier let go, and the water just come crashing down the river. This is in the Himalayas, northern India. But what I wanted to point out is notice what the water is doing to this to the shores of the river. It's blowing up way high on either side of the river. Now these cliffs are very, very steep. Can you imagine what this river would be doing if you only had a 5 or a 2% grade of landscape leading up to the river? It would be flying everywhere. So this is why you don't want to set up close to a river for your safe location. It's because the amount of water that's going to be coming down will be looking like this in lots of cases, especially the Columbia River. So don't set up near a river. Now here is some new stuff that's coming on. This has been happening now. I think for at least 6 months, 8 months to a year. Increase on what's happening is now this is not clouds passing in front of the sun. This is real time. This is real time. Keep watching. Notice what the reflection on the sea and how it matches what the sun is doing. So that's very possible as clouds move in front of the sun, but not this. This is not clouds moving in front of the sun. The sun is flashing, but it's not really. It's something is passing in front of the sun. So let's switch. I'll get to what the causes in a minute. Here is an entirely different situation, a different place in the world. Again, the sun is flashing. Now, I remember seeing this a year or so ago. Yeah. And I didn't know what it was then. Okay, so we have a flashing sun. Okay, so what's happening are petrol bubbles. So what we're seeing are what Zeta Talk is calling petrol bubbles, and these are massive, to say the least, blobs in the form of round bubbles of petroleum. So believe it or not, that's where all of Earth's crude oil comes from, is from the tail of Planet X, prior pole shifts. Each pole shift it drops unbelievable, unimaginable amounts of crude oil onto the surface of the Earth, and it seeps down into crevices, and then you have a crude oil deposit. So that these are going to be are falling now, little bits of it here and there, aflame. Not always. Sometimes they just land wet, and but this will be happening more and more. And but in space, as the tail of Planet X is wafting around, these are huge amounts of petrol or crude oil in bubble format, and that's what's causing this this blinking of the sun. Now here is I brought this. I wanted to show this as a great catch of Planet X moons. A lot of people get moons. A lot of people get confused between sighting Planet X and Planet X moons. So you see these two dots here. Now, if you were looking at this scene with your naked eye, you wouldn't see these, because this happens to be two lens flares. But the fact is, you'll see in a moment, the actual moons are actually here, and these are lens for flares. But the point is, you see two together, it's pretty obvious that they're Planet X moons. But you notice how far these moons are being caught by the sunlight reflected to Earth, how far they are from the sun. That's indication that they are a moon of Planet X, one of the moons being lit up by the sun. It's just the way the angle works out. So you can see as these pass out pass away, and then they're just lens flares. Okay, so the next thing is, I have to bring this up because the UFOs, the ETs and the UFOs that have been massively appearing around the world these days, they're warning people below. So if you see a formation of UFOs in the night sky or in the daytime, whenever, they're warning you. This is over Jacksonville, Florida, which will be washed over. So if you see UFO display, they're warning you, get out of town. Now, speaking of getting out of town, watch this one. I saw this a year ago. Well, yeah, it was January 2019. Watch what happens with this. This is a genuine catch of a triangular UFO. Oh! You can tell this is genuine by the guy's reaction. This event is really what it's saying. This is over Amsterdam, the Netherlands. What it's saying is, get out of town. That's what it's saying. There's no safe locations in the Netherlands. Here's another video. It's unbelievable, but you talk about a fast freeze. And this, of course, is what it's talking about is Earth wobble, and it's getting worse. Why is it getting worse? Because Planet X is closing in on Earth. Now, February 4, 2023, but it's still closing in. And the reason it closes in is because Earth is backing up on an arc, and it really can only back up so far. And Planet X is moving in a straight line. So it's sort of standing aside. Earth is like backing up and then standing aside as Planet X approaches. And so that means Planet X is gaining. In other words, the distance between Planet X and Earth is becoming smaller. Planet X moves in a relatively straight line through the solar system. The reason it does that is because it has to obey the dictates of two orbital foci, our Sun and our Sun's binary twin. So the combination of those two gravitational beyond giants that it's orbiting it between is the reason why Planet X passes through our solar system in a straight line and not on a curve. Now, Earth wobble. Watch this. So this is Siberia. Okay, it's cold in Siberia, but not that cold. These animals are frozen, solid, standing up. Let me stop this for a minute. Now, this was a story years ago that we all used to point back in the day about the approach of the pole shift. And it was that mammoths were found in the Siberian tundra, frozen. Now, they must have been excavated, but they were found with, determined that they had fresh food in their mouths while they died. So they were flash frozen, and that was an old story that happened, that these people had found these mammoths frozen like that with fresh food still in their mouths, frozen. Now it's happening now. This is a dog. That's a fast freeze. Could only have these. Look at the rat jumped up in the back of the dog to get warm. That was a fast freeze. Amazing. What can you say about that? Earth wobble. How cold does it have to be to freeze an animal standing up like that? Solid. It's just, so that's an amazing event. So, so the other, one thing I wanted to, I keep harping on is that I was talking to a lady last night in Arizona, and they had to transit to the mountains, and you know, it's a number of miles, and they have to use a four-wheel drive truck to get there. And so I said to them, well, you know, the weather is going to get worse, and as you get closer to the summer, I've often said that the summer of 2022 is a time to be in a safe location, or you should have it, and you should be moving there by then or during that time. That's my guess, my best guess. So the weather would be getting bad and washing out roads. This is just a, you know, an example of the Columbia River Highway getting washed out. Here's another one. This is from Western Australia. They'll be lucky if that's all you have to face with is a partially washed out road, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be roads completely washed out. So plan now, get there as soon as you can, and if you have to go a long way, make sure. I've often said you're better off to move. Let's say you have a safe location planned, say in some location. So then, you know, you're 100, 200, 300 miles or longer away from it. Then I've said to people, well, okay, you got the property. You should move to the nearest town, closest to that property, and move now. Just as another concept, which I want to bring up in a sec, is to move there now, so you're close. So there's no bridges between you and that property. Yeah, so that's what I've said. Now the other thing is that I want to talk a bit about is the concepts of the aftertime as compared to what we're used to now. And so we're all tied into our current lifestyles, living, you know, just living our lives, and we know the pole shift, but it's important when you're planning for the pole shift, planning for the pole shift and for the aftertime, is to not project your expectations of your lifestyle now, not even one of them, onto your life in the aftertime, because you're going to be homesteading for the rest of your life. So that should be, it's important to get that clarity. I know it takes a while to come to that realization, but it's important to kind of nudge yourself along so that you're not resisting the process. Just embrace the concept of homesteading for the rest of your life. That means being self-sufficient and no government help, no running water. Now you might imagine, if you want to imagine having running water, well, or what have you, then that's great. You imagine that and you work for that. But as far as the current conveniences that we have, they're not going to be there. There was just not piped water and distributed food and packaged food and equipment supply. You know, so all these things are going to be gone. So, but imagine you have everything you need, and go through the list in your mind to have that all set, and that's the imaginative process. That's excellent. But to project your current lifestyle onto the lifestyle of the aftertime is a falsehood. So now moving on, here was a sighting of, some of you may remember the sky spiral of 2009, which is very dramatic. But here is another one. This is not an approaching jet. Or a rocket. You might think that, but if you keep watching, this is a sky spiral. We'll get more into that in a little bit. You see it fade away? So the electrical charge dissipated. That's why it faded. Okay, so let's go to a few things I wanted to talk about. This is from space, from orbit. You see Planet X there, it's a traditional location. Now, you have to realize that as you move around the globe, Planet X, although it's been for the northern hemisphere, it's been at the 3 to 4 o'clock, 3 to 4 to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock position. Now the Earth wobble, you see we're getting into Earth wobble now it's appearing close to the sun but in different locations, but that's another concept. But the idea is that depending where you are on the globe, you will see Planet X close to the sun in different locations. It's snowing in Greece. Amazing. Now here is this is not a sky spiral, but it's an electrochemical process lighting up clouds in the sky that have petrochemicals in them that are reacting to the electromagnetic forces between the ground and the tail in the atmosphere, in the upper atmosphere, and it causes this electrified chemical process, the same process that you find in light sticks. When you break them, the two chemicals mix and then you get light emitting. It's the same essential process here. Now this has been reported as a static image, but it's being reported as a comet. It's not. You'll see here. Here's another example. Same thing. Here's another example. Same thing. Similar color. But these are you can't call it static, but they're not an asteroid. Another one there. Okay, now here's another thing that's happening. This would be a webcam. Now, unfortunately, we don't know the direction this is facing. You could say that this is the sun over here, but we don't know which direction it's facing. But you can see a projected image. Now, this is not a lens flare. This is would be either Venus or Earth's dead twin. Now, for those who don't know about Earth's dead twin, Earth has a twin. It's a similar size to Earth, and it orbits the sun 180 degrees, normally 180 degrees of Earth. So the reason it stays at 180 degrees, in other words, the other side of the sun, is because it's on the same orbital track as Earth, and therefore it is approximately the same mass as Earth. So naturally it's going to settle into the opposite side. Gravity and the repulsion forces are just going to keep them balanced like that. That's simple physics. That's Earth's dead twin, and it has no apparent life on it. But so this could be a gravity wave projection of Venus or Earth's dead twin. Now, also that as Earth backs up with a trapped Venus and a trapped Earth's dead twin. Now, Earth's dead twin cannot continue its orbit because Earth is in the way and it's backing up. So at some point it will bob around Earth and continue on its orbit, probably because it doesn't have a magnetic field. But that's I'm off topic here. But this image is real, and it's a projected image because it's a magnification of an image of a planet you can't see in the distance. And it's magnified because of the redirection of the gravity waves back to Earth. So, due to the gravity of Earth. So it's just a natural event that you have when you have planets that are highly unnaturally close to Earth. Earth Wobble created this same day, 28 degrees in Galveston, Texas, and 83 degrees in Florida. That's Earth Wobble causing that. Of course, this brings us to the whole point of the whole polar vortex thing, and the polar vortex is just an establishment lie to cover for Earth Wobble. So, I mean, I remember a time when, you know, the weather was consistent. I mean, you have storms, but you knew that on the 15th, growing up, I knew on the 15th of December, back in the 60s, I could look up at the local mountain. If I saw a dusting of snow, I knew it was going to probably snow within a month or so, or even a couple of weeks. There was a time when the weather was predictable. You could just look at the local mountains, look at the sky, look at the wind, and you knew just by experience that, well, we're heading into fall. There's a rainstorm coming. It'll go away. You have a few rainstorms, and then spring would come. It was all predictable. It's gone now because of Earth Wobble. Again, snowing in Greece. Shouldn't be snowing in Greece. Earth Wobble. Mount Etna is in Italy. Sicily is erupting. We all know that. This is a bay in Italy where it has the sea floor is buckling, and so whenever you hear of a bay emptying, when you have ships that are normally boats that are normally floating there, even in extremely low tides, you know that the sea floor is buckling, and the reason this is Italy, so we know that the Africa is rolling. The top of Africa, which lies underneath, is on the Mediterranean Sea floor, is rolling eastward, and it's only going to get worse. And so as it rolls, you're going to have different effects, and tsunamis are one, extremely rough water, rogue waves, and heaving and buckling seafloors, and that's what this is. It's the rolling of Africa towards the east. This I'm not sure whether this is definitely oil in the skies. This is from again Petrol Bubbles. Now originally I thought maybe these were earthquake clouds, but they don't seem like they've taken the form of a cloud, whereas earthquake clouds have reflections and various unusual blobs of rainbow colors in them. But this is pretty consistent, so I would say this is crude oil in the clouds. So Petrol Bubbles dropping down on the clouds, and the clouds are holding on to the petroleum product that causes this coloration. Obviously, the coloration is caused by sunlight passing through it, or reflected through it, or passing over the clouds in some manner. Petrol Bubbles are distorting the shape of the sun, and that's what this is, a Petrol Bubble. Again, Petrol Bubbles. Now, one might think, oh, they moved the camera, something like that, but look at the sea. That's pretty sharp. Good definition there. So that's not a moving camera. Also, look at the thickness of the of the reflection on the water here. That's this portion of the light reflecting down from the petrol bubbles, that width there. Otherwise, if this was a normal picture of the sun, then you'd have a very clear, very bright orb, and you'd have a single line right up the middle there, a nice straight line. So this is a genuine photo, and it is that of petrol bubbles. Again, that's a variation of the previous image. So here we have snow that is pink, and that is caused by a deposit of iron oxide dust from the tail of Planet X. So it's been happening for years now, spotty, but now it's becoming more and more prevalent. String of pearls. This would be something I've seen a few years ago, and I thought, oh, it's just behind a triple glass. Well, we got what, 4 representations of the orb here apparently, but that's not true. And so you don't have quadruple glaze glass. However, regardless, notice that these orbs are not exactly equal apart. They're in varying distances. So that means it cannot be behind a triple glaze or some kind of a glazing of a glass. They'd have to be perfectly aligned in a sequence, in an exact sequence. But these vary, so that makes them what Zeta Talk calls a string of pearls, which is basically a very euphemistic way of describing the lineup of the moons that orbit near Planet X or Nibiru. They virtually line up, and they orbit like this. It's like in tails like that. Now that's the heavy mass objects are close to like that, like moons. But the tail, which has an unbelievable amount of mass in it, but it's spread out over about 5 million miles, and it's wafting back and forth according to the electrical charges and what the sun is doing, and it's all kinds of forces that make the tail move around a bit. But this is a genuine catch of the string of pearls. Again, as another catch of the string of pearls. If you look closely, you can see that this distance here between these two is not the same as this distance. So this is another example of string of pearls. Here is a phenomenon that's appearing. This is just because the sky has now I forget the number of facets on the crystal, but typical when you get unusual arcs and coloration above the sun, sometimes it's caused by ice, especially when you have a circle around the sun. That's ice crystals. But this is apparently, this shape here is caused by tubular ice crystals, which are created by extreme cold or some kind of conditions likely to do with Earth wobble. This was a snow tornado, wasn't it? I wanted to present this image because this would be probably the site. This could represent the last 10 minutes of your life. If you were living, if you had your safe location too close to the coast, this is what it would look like as the sea came through the mountain passes. I found out afterwards that this is actually a glacier. But I thought, what a great representation of what it would look like before you died, because you didn't locate far enough from the ocean, because the ocean is going to push through the mountain passes near the coast just like that. It'll look just like that. So we'll go back to some ideas I want to talk about. Now I'll get past this. Waiting for my okay to update here. Okay, so this is some pole shift survival suggestions. Now I want to remember to comment on radon detectors as opposed to radon test kits. Now, if you're planning on setting up in a cave, I might as well deal with this now. Is that my last update? I sort of started changing my mind on caves, because I imagine the mouth of the cave collapsing, with debris and closing the cave off. But if you choose a cave carefully, then you don't have to deal with that. That's why I used to steer people away from using caves. But now I'm having second thoughts on that. I did meet a man, and he explained a few things to me about caves. So if you think about it, caves are anywhere from, well, if you research it, 100,000 years old to 5 million years old, and perhaps older. So I did the numbers on it. I think it's like about 57. If the cave is 5 million years old, it's endured. It's endured over 1,000 pole shifts. 1,000 pole shifts. So the caves are actually quite good if it's a natural cave. So even if it's a young cave at 100,000 years old, you divide 3,500 into that. I think, don't quote me, I think it's about 50 pole shifts. So if you're thinking of a cave, make sure it's not a wet cave. It's got to be a terrestrial or a dry cave. The reason for that is that during the pole shift there'd be a lot of water falling and moving around. If you have a wet cave, it's only going to get much worse. You could get washed right out of the cave during the pole shift. So it's got to be a dry cave. Now, if it's a dry cave and you're in there, you're going to need a full face mask like that, because you don't want to breathe in this the fungi that causes a disease called histoplasmosis, which come from bat guana, which can make you sick. So you just get the mask. You're going to need a mask anyways, because there's going to be a lot of dust flying during the pole shift, and you're going to need it anyways. If you're not going to sit in a cave for well, you might sit in a cave for the 6 days of stopped Earth beforehand. If you happen to pop outside, there's going to be a lot of wind and dust and junk flying, so you're going to need it anyways. So you're going to need that to protect yourself against the fungi. Now, so while you're in the cave, you should have a radon detector to tell you how much radon you're going to be having exposed to. Radon is filterable. Now you'll have to research it. I neglected to research for these, but a very good face mask, like I was pointing out, can filter out radon gas. Can be filtered out. But you want to know how much radon gas is in the cave. So that's what a radon detector is good for. I think they're about $200. Now we're contrasting that against a radon test kit. Now a radon test kit, you have to get an agency send your results after 2 weeks. You leave the test out for something, a week to 2 weeks, 10 days, and then you send it off to an agency to test it. And then now, how long are you going to wait? A month? to get that back, better off to get real-time testing. So get a radon detector. Now I want to talk about the 24-hour clock with a calendar function. Okay, this is a bit complex. As we get closer to the pole shift, Earth is going to be slowing down. So that means our days will be getting longer. So there's two reasons why a mechanical, not an electrically driven clock, but a mechanical, can be a self-winder or a manual winder, but it needs to be a mechanical 24-hour clock, hopefully with a calendar function in it. That way you won't have to mark each day. So you're going to set up your watch maybe the summer of 2022. So two reasons why you want a 24-hour mechanical watch with a calendar function. First reason is that in the days, weeks, and months in the latter part of 2022, Earth will be slowing down. That means at first, it just gets to be a long day. So, but there will come a time when standard timekeeping will fail. Right now, I understand that they are adjusting the atomic clocks worldwide to hide the fact that Earth is slowing down slightly. But they won't be able to hide it after a while. So how are you going to mark your time? Why would you want to mark your time? Well, we do everything by day and night, by the rotation of Earth. We eat by that, we sleep by that. All our activities are somehow related to a 24-hour day. So as Earth slows down, the original calendar that we're all used to, I'm speaking of the standard calendar. I know there are other calendars in the world, I know that, but we're talking about the standard calendar that most of us use in the first world countries. Don't be offended, I know there are other calendars, but right now, whatever calendar you're using is going to go off the rails. So once we get to a 30 or 40-hour day, even a day that's an hour longer is going to throw off the calendar. So if you want to count, so the first reason why you want a mechanical 24-hour clock with a calendar function is so that as Earth slows down, you can keep track of your day, of your body day, because really that's what it's all about, is the rhythms that you're used to, sleep, eat. So that's one way to keep track of when it's time to go to sleep. Say in October 2022, it could be time to get up, and it's pitch black outside. We're not talking winter here. It's pitch black for hours and hours and hours, maybe a day, because of the moving of the tipping and rolling of Earth, the Earth wobble. So the clock in that case will keep you tuned to what your body's used to, and because it'll be very, very confusing and shocking as the days get longer, and when it's supposed to be night, and now it's like even something you plan with a clock, 24-hour clock, it's like, okay, it should be light, but it's pitch black, and or vice versa. It's going to be all over the place. With a clock, give you something to kind of keep your body going and keep your family eating at the time when they used to. Now, the irony or the limitation of the difference between the two systems, the two reasons why you want to have a 24-hour clock, is that the second reason is, and that is when Earth comes to a stop, we know it's going to be, according to Zeta Talk, 5.9 days before the pole shift. So when this Earth comes to a stop and the sun's still in the sky, we know it's about 6 days before now of a stopped Earth. That is to say, a rotational stopped Earth. Mechanical clock will enable you to count those 6 days. That way you can reliably, if you got to run out of the cave or your bunker or what have you, you got to do something, you'll know that, okay, well, I've got 3 days left of the pole shift. So even though it's looking crazy outside, you know you can go out with relative confidence if you have to leave. And it gives you something to mark the time to the pole shift. So that's during that period of time when you have no time. It's just time stands still. So the 24-hour clock will give you the sense of the 6 days. So as I said, this is quite complex. So the the date of the pole shift I've published, February 4th, 2023, is based on the old calendar. As the days get longer and longer, you'll mark to the best you can on a calendar. You'll have a paper calendar, and you'll mark as best you can the actual days as they pass. So the day is 30 hours long. Fine, that was, let's say, October 1st, and it gets night and it's morning. Well, that's October 2nd. Maybe October 2nd is going to be, maybe 31 hours. The day will be 31 hours long. It's still October 2nd. Okay. So then October 3rd comes and maybe, it's 31 and a half hours. Okay. So you have a night and then you have a day. So you're marking those days on a calendar. So even though your mechanical watch, you have that going, it will be advancing right ahead of the calendar because it's going according to 24-hour day. So you'll have to mix it up a little bit. At any rate, the mechanical watch will give you a sense of rhythm, which you're used to, and then you mark down the days as they pass, even though they're going to get longer, and that'll be heading towards, that's the February 4th. You're going to use the old calendar as best you can up until the rotation stoppage. Then you can throw the calendar out, and then you got 6 days. Then you got 6 days to the pole shift. So that's why that's the big advantage of the 24-hour mechanical watch. Okay, here's a couple that have found a very clever solution to expensive earth bags. So if you're building an underground shelter, or if you want to use earth as a method of building your after-time house, or maybe it's you're lining your trench with these bags, your survival trench, anything to do with pole shift prep. So this couple have, I believe this is going to be a repository for water.
So what kind of bags are we using for this build? They're woven polypropylene bags. So what we have here are misprinted grain bags and seed bags.
These have never held any grain or seeds.
Yeah, straight from the factory.
So they've found this method of getting very, very, very inexpensive woven polypropylene bags. Now the reason why he made that very clear is because they discovered that if you just you can get like big plastic bags, but you don't want to use bags that can't breathe. That's the whole point of have them being woven polypropylene bags, because they'll breathe, so the water will dry out. So basically that they breathe. So these are misprinted grain bags. So you get them for like pennies, as opposed to like several dollars or whatever for a official Earth bag. So if you've got lots of money, you can just order Earth bags. That would be probably a product name. Otherwise, you could just use these other very inexpensive woven polypropylene bags from companies that produce bagged grain, whatever. But it's got to be woven polypropylene. That's the whole point, I think. The other thing I noticed during of the occupation, I'm not going political, but when the U.S. National Guard occupied D.C., and I believe they're still there, it was pretty clear that the networking platforms were overloaded. So communications are going to be the weak point. So that would mean possibly a cell phone communication. Everyone is going to be on their cell phones, so the servers on these cell phone towers are going to be overloaded. So where I'm going with this is that there's two public methods of communications that are independent of cell phones, of course, which is amateur radio or ham radio or CB radio. So I think that would be, and there's some frequencies that you can get up in the 433 megahertz, which is another, but anyways, you can get by your own communication devices for these last weeks or certainly the last months. I probably want to keep them in a Faraday cage, keep them wrapped up in a aluminum foil when you're not using them. But yeah, so have your own method of communicating besides cell phone would be a good idea. Also, landline, of course, would be quite reliable. Yeah, so I want to mention that. There's a tomato farmer in Burundi, who found that storing tomatoes in obviously cold fireplace ash enabled them to store them for months. So there's something, if you're growing tomatoes, you could use that it's amazing. So using ash to store them in, because tomatoes, they don't take a few days and they're gone, right? So, and the other thing is the guard donkey. So for those people who have the wherewithal and the knowledge, you certainly don't want, in the aftertime, you certainly don't want some noisy dog barking every time a deer goes by or something like that, or they hear something. You don't want some dog barking away and you're out there in the you're out there in your safe location trying to keep your head down for a couple of years to avoid any survivor migrants that are looking for a free ride, looking to rob you. Get a guard donkey, silent and deadly. These guys are. I saw a video one time of a guard donkey killing a cougar. It's just amazing. Very, very deadly animal and silent. So I think that's about it on this section, and so I'd like to move now into getting into discussing the fate of the maritime countries in the South Pacific and the fate that they're looking at for the pole shift. Okay, in this section, I want to walk the viewers through the fate for the maritime island nations in the Western Pacific, South Pacific. Obviously, that includes all of what's on the tongue here, the Sunda Plate, which is an extension of Eurasia, and all the like South China, Laos, Vietnam. I'm not pointing at specific countries. There's a lot of countries in here, but basically we're talking about these countries on the tongue here. We call it the tongue, or the extension of the Eurasian plate, right here, like that, if you see the cursor. Now, to start things off, I'd like to talk about the actual angle of the permanent tip of Earth during the pole shift. Now, we know that the permanent tip, or the relocation of the poles, will be 90 degrees. Now, we know that because of Zeta Talk. Now, Zeta Talk, if you're not familiar, is the most preferred, the most comprehensive by far of any website in the globe. And they started in 1995. Nancy Leader, and you can find it at zetatalk.com. And they have provided citizens of the Earth, anyone with a computer, an internet connection, of the detail, the framework, the outline, to an amazing degree and an amazing amount of information. It's like, I did a count of the pages of Zeta Talk. It was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago I did a count. And it was like, at that time, it was 28,000 pages. Now there's a search function on the Zeta Talk website. You can use that if you want to search for stuff. They have a solid history of predictions, and yes, there's a few predictions that went south. Now, there's a reason for that. Now that we're getting into some complicated stuff here, but essentially they're head and shoulders far beyond any other source. Now, they predicted the 90-degree rotation, or the layover, or the change of the geological shift of the poles to be 90 degrees, as I've said. Now, this is the map you can see find it on Zeta Talk. I'll leave a link to it in the show more section, of this portion of the video. Well, on this video. And here you can see the new South Pole will be just off the coast, just off the tip of India. Now, you'll see more in a minute. They have another detailed map. So, that means that the new Antarctic Circle will be something like this. Now, this map is a flat map designed to be wrapped around a golf ball, believe it or not. You cut this out. So, but maps, as you know, don't really represent the surface of the Earth. They're close, and in some cases, the Mercator map, for example, is terrible. It doesn't give the true sizes. But here we're talking the southwestern Pacific around India, and you'll see in the map. I did a calculation of the width of I can't remember what it is, something like 6,000 miles in a radius either that or it was a total diameter of about 6 or 7,000 miles, of the for the diameter of the Antarctic Circle. So now, so we are basing the all our work, safe location work, on the 90-degree tip. And that will obviously look something like that. But it's more complex than that. Not only, so you've got, what you'll have is something like this after the pole shift. You'll have here will be the South Pole here. So as you can see, this area here, although it will be distorted because the Pacific itself is being compressed smaller. I think I did a measurement at one point, something like 4,000 or 5,000. I know it's hard to believe, but it's like something about 4,000 or 5,000 miles. And so the Pacific will shrink and the Atlantic will expand. So it does kind of move things around a little bit, the continents around. But essentially, you're going to have the southern tip of India as centered on the new South Pole. So that puts the Antarctic Circle something like this, right there. Now, next in the sequence of things I want to explain is that I'm thinking that if I lived in any of these countries here and I heard that this information, I would want to check out the accuracy of Zeta Talk. Well, that's why I started off with Zeta Talk. Zeta Talk's been very accurate. Now let me also explain something else about Zeta Talk. They give the framework, but they don't give in they don't channel individual too fine of detail. So the framework is for us as humans to figure out what we have to do, and it gives us something to work a lot to work with, which that's what I work with in my safe location work. Now, but we're still relying on the 90-degree tip as being accurate. That's why I'm saying that the Zeta Talk work has been extremely accurate. I'd also like to say that I'm going somewhere with this. Hold on. I'd also like to say that Zeta Talk, if you think about it, is exposing the pole shift, whereas the governments of the world are not. So that makes Zeta Talk the enemy of the governments, in a manner of speaking. It also makes Zeta Talk the enemy of the elite, who've been recently been gathered up and executed. I don't want to get political here. But anyways, the elite and also those in the government are also still and will continue to hide the fact of the pole shift. Now, I've said the date is February 4, 2023. My reasons are in my book, which will be coming out this year. Now, due to the cover-up of the pole shift, and the government's not talking about it, the corporations, of course, are all part of it. It's all international cooperation, more or less. You're not going to get the truth, number one, from the governments and the media. The media today is lying to you. So when you watch the media, when you turn your television set off, on to watch, or anything in the newspaper or what have you you're reading, uh, it's all designed to keep you distracted, completely distracted. So there's no truth at all about what's really happening in the world today. There's massive changes going on around the world that are not being reported. Um, so now, where are we? What I wanted to stress is the accuracy of Zeta Talk, and that the governments are not talking about it. So you're basically on your own, except for people who tried, like Zeta Talk, to try to explain things to people. And there's also a number of other places where you can go to get some information about what's going on. So where I'm going here is that the elite, the wealthy, extremely wealthy, and the governments of the world do not want you to know about the pole shift. Now, the creator of Zeta Talk and the ET beings that are part of the channeling through Nancy Leader for Zeta Talk, that's what it is. It's a channel through Nancy Leader. And so don't criticize Zeta Talk until you've read it. A lot of people calling about this and that, this, whining about this and that, and and I ask them, have you read Zeta Talk? Silence. Go read Zeta Talk if you don't believe this. Okay, so Zeta Talk is read by all the government heads and the elite and their workers, and they keep tabs on what Zeta Talk says. That's why they only provide a framework. Well, that's one reason why they only provide a framework. The other reason is that they are well, there's other reasons, but I forgot right now. Pause. The other reason is that for all the secrecy of details about the fine details about the pole shift, other than the framework that Zeta Talk provides, is that Zeta Talk in the past, and most likely in the near future, that they have to misdirect in some cases the message. And one of the messages was getting into stuff I shouldn't be getting into. Okay, I'll stop, pause. As I was saying, the situation is very complex. So you have the governments not wanting the public to know. Why? Because they'll be revolting. There'll be panic in the streets. So, but there's another secret reason in that the elite read, the wealthy elite read Zeta Talk. So Zeta Talk cannot give them any clues as to the timing of the pole shift. Now, I have my reasons for my date for the pole shift, which you will have to read, get my book. I don't care if anybody buys my book. It just has to be written. But if you want the facts, you'll find it in my book. Again, I don't care if people buy it. So moving on, something more important actually, and that is if people are genuinely aware of a fact that sleep dreams are more real than our physical waking life. It's an actual fact that dreams are more real than our lives. Now, moving on from that, I want to show you something that, see, I get people that write to me all kinds of stuff. And one gentleman, years ago who wrote to me, and he told me that he was in his sleep dream. He was taken high into the sky in his dream body, and he was looking down on the earth. And what he described to me was something like this. So after the pole shift, we have we're going to have, I'm starting to use North America as a template to start off with. So we know that it rolls this way. Well, actually, it'd be easier to do it this way. The Antarctica is placed on the equator. So we know that the globe rotates from east to west. So let's just kind of take a peek up at the top of the globe here. Okay, so what was described to me in the dream this man wrote to me about when he was in his dream body. He must have been out, however, but he was, I don't know how high he was, but he was something like this. So he said that he was out there looking at Earth rotate, and he said he saw Africa pass by, and then he said some stuff, and then he said he saw England. Now he lived in England, like that. Let's start again. So he's over Africa, and he said he saw it rotating like this, and then he saw England underneath him. So let's zoom out. Okay, so it's difficult to get the globe exactly perfect, but so as you can see, what he told me supports the 90-degree permanent layover or relocation of the crust, because because of the angle of the rotation and the direction, which was this direction. So again, it's this direction like that. So that, from a dream perspective, supports what Zeta Talk has told us. And here, of course, is Antarctica. So, but the direction of the rotation is like this: Africa, then England, Antarctica, east to west, Africa to England. So you get that. So I thought that was fantastic that he wrote and told me that, and so it was wonderful to have a completely independent point of view, an experience to support the 90-degree tip of Earth. So okay, we've got a 90-degree tip. So I wanted to explain that. So let's move on. Here, I wrote this, I drew this up so that with all the basic forces that will be in place after the pole shift. So I'll explain a few things here. We've got, essentially we've got a big blue circle here, which is the new Antarctic Circle. So that's that would be pretty much ice 12 months of the year. So that's permanently frozen. Now we have the red dots, which there were so many volcanoes. I mean, there were so many volcanoes in this area around this Sunda plate. and out into the Pacific here, that they're just, I just put red dots through there just to indicate that this whole area here is all volcanic. And as we speak, here is March 24th, there's all kinds of volcanic action going on all around the world. It's a fantastic increase. So now the other force is that, as I said, the entire Pacific coast is being, a Pacific Ocean is being compressed like that, whereas the Atlantic is being spread in compensation. So we have the Pacific Oceanic Plate here on the right side that's being driven underneath or over top of or against the Sunda Plate, which all the islands are on, set on. So here's a few videos I want to show. This is the history of what they call Sundaland, which is one time this whole tongue, the Sunda Plate, was above the waves. If you look here, you'll see that at one time it had rivers, very low area here, very low in here. As time goes by, it has a tendency to sink. And here you see it starting to sink. This is and as it goes, you can see it's shrinking. So it's this whole area tends to sink, the Sunda Plate. Here's another one showing various changes. This is a long time ago, 120 million years ago. It's important to look at the history. So you can see that this whole area here, the Sunda Plate, never really was a solid piece of land. Moving, shifting, you'll see it's shifting and moving, changing shape. And that's today. So it's shifting and moving from the pressure of the Pacific, most likely, and also the stretching of Eurasia. I believe that shows up here somewhere. Yeah. So Eurasia is under stretch pressure, and the most clear video is this one here. Here's the Sunda Plate. You see India is being pushed, and that's what created the Himalayan mountains. And at one time, the Sunda Plate was above entirely above the sea level. But watch what happens. 20 million years ago, 10 million years ago, and these are like, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 pole shifts. There you go. So you see it has a tendency to be pushed down, and that's where we're going here, is that the not only do we have the new Antarctic Circle extending over most of the islands and parts of Africa and Southeast Asia and Turkey and this peninsula here. But you have a push down of the Sunda Plate and a crushing, and so that's occurring during now, but also during the pole shift, it greatly increases to the point where Western India is pushed down with India, or is pushed under this whole Indo-Australian continental plate here, outlined here, is being tipped, and Western Australia is pushed upwards. I should say Eastern Australia is being pushed upwards, and Western Australia sinks. Okay, now you've got, at the same time with all this continental action, it's wholesale continental action, you've got the magma underneath all these continents is put under a lot of pressure, so it creates all these volcanoes are going to go off, and new ones are going to be created. Now, I had a person who lives on. Now, please don't. I don't have an international tongue, so I had a person write to me, and they told me of a dream they had, and in this dream they were on the island of Luzon, and they were this person was observing their father and their brother who had passed on before her, and so she was having this dream, and they were sitting on Luzon. I don't know exactly where, were they in the mountains or not, but they were sitting facing east. Both the brother and the father were sitting together, facing east. And they were, she described it as that they were all gray. And so I interpreted the dream for her, and I said, well, your father and your brother are trying to tell you something. And what my best estimation is that, well, they're facing east because they want you to look east, to consider east. And they were all gray because they were covered with, they're all covered with volcanic ash. So what we've got going on, of course, is a lot of the, there's going to be new volcanoes coming up out of the ground, out of the ocean, off the ocean floor, because this is where all the compression is taking place and all the big action on this ridge here against the Pacific plate being pushed against Luzon. The Sunday plate. So this is where there's going to be new volcanoes. And so what the dream was telling her, that the volcanoes will come out of the sea and they'll be blowing ash onto Luzon for, well, when that happens, of course, they erupt. Zeta Talk tells us they'll be erupting for like decades. So the message is here is that between the new Antarctic Circle creating a frozen ground, a frozen life, 12 months of the year, the crushing and pushing down of the Sunday plate, so all these islands are going to lose elevation fantastically. Not only that, because there's going to be incredible amount of moving earth, so the possibility of setting up somewhere and not have a landslide carry you away, or you being covered by a landslide is extremely high. And with the volcanoes coming out of the sea, so the combination of all those three factors, that the only viable advice that I could give anyone living in on the Sunday Plate in this area is to simply get off the island, to get out of the area. And that's the unfortunate reality that the Philippines and these areas have to offer for the pole shift. So safe locations are Africa, anywhere outside of this blue circle here, if you can get into Asia. These are the only nearby safe locations. Now the island of New Guinea is actually a safe location. Technically a safe location because it's not part of the Sunday Plate, so it's being pushed up with eastern Australia here. New Zealand and Taiwan. Taiwan actually does quite well. So I had a person say they didn't know where Taiwan. Well, this is Taiwan. And if you can get to Taiwan, the northeast section of Taiwan is the best if you want to avoid volcanic ash. Now, one thing I want to mention is that if a person living on the Sunday Plate, any one of these countries, survives the pole shift, which is the initial onslaught of the conditions are, as you know, the pole shift is survivable. There will be a lot of moving land, so the likelihood of survival is quite light if you stay. But anyone who does survive the pole shift and is prepared, immediately after the pole shift, yes, there will be a lot of volcanic action going on, but it won't be frigid. It'll take months and months before the area, for this area in the blue circle, become frozen. So there's going to be a period of time when people from these islands can migrate freely away from that area. So there will be a window of opportunity if you survive the pole shift. So the whole trick will be on the highest mountains, but in a bunker or in a well-designed trench, survive the pole shift, and then you immediately make plans to leave by boat. And you will have time, as the seas will settle down within a few days, maybe a week, and off you go to your new, sailing off to your new home. And as I said, Taiwan is doable. Obviously, the farther you go up the coast of China, the better. You could move towards, sail towards the island of New Guinea, or even into northern, in here, to Australia. So they will be, that's eastern Australia. So you'll have those safe locations at the closest, Taiwan and China and New Zealand was a little far away, but certainly Australia is within reasonable sailing distance. So I just wanted to add that. So there you have it. for those people who live in the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Laos, Vietnam. That's the reality that is facing your country. Okay, that's it. That's my update for now, March 24. And thanks for watching. And I'll be switching it up now and going back into doing more safe location videos for parts of the world. Thanks for watching. It's Chris Thomas signing off. Thank you.